Hi everybody, welcome back to our course about how to create an idea bank. In today's video, we're going to look at the next part of the idea bank, which is the subtopics. Now, we spoke in the last video about vocabulary, how you should collect it, why you should collect it, collect as much of it as you can. And the reason is, words are ideas. So now we're going to have to take all of these words and put them into more focused looks at the topic itself. So we're going to think about the abstract topic, and then we're going to look at the more focused topic. So for example, education. Education is very abstract. There's nothing you can actually point at for education. But a more focused topic might be private versus public schools, or uniforms for students, or letting them choose what they want to wear. Study near home or go overseas, like an international student. All kinds of different subtopics within education. And that's what we're going to do here as well for housing. So what you're going to do first is you're going to just brainstorm these ideas from your keywords. Especially use your headings. Go through all your headings and think about what kinds of debates or what kinds of questions you can ask where you would actually use these words in your answer. Now, another place to get ideas for subtopics is from actual questions or task prompts. We'll do that in the next video, but you can also already start looking for different types of questions, or if you have a book, they give you sample questions, start getting ideas about these subtopics from these questions. Okay? Now, as you're creating these subtopics, there are certain things you want to think about to make it a bit easier for yourself. Think about things that can be compared or contrasted. And you're going to show the comparisons and the contrasts. Debatable things. You're going to look at two sides of something. Positives and negatives, advantages, disadvantages, pros, cons, for, against, etc. Think about things that are a matter of choice. Something, you're given a few things or you're given two things and you have to choose one and you have to give reasons for making that choice. And start thinking about all these reasons and all these choices. Also start thinking about terms and concepts. Things that are not necessarily debatable, but things that you can expand on and give an argument or an opinion about by itself. And I'm going to give you examples of all of these as well. Think about things that might have causes, like for example, pollution has causes, and solutions, what you can do about these things, and write all of these ideas down, because then you're going to start expanding and adding more ideas to them, and long-term effects as part of solutions as well. Now you're going to start making mind maps. So you have all these random ideas, you're going to start connecting them. So let's take education again as an example. Within education, of course, you're thinking about teachers. From teachers, you can think about, do teachers have more power or to teach, or do parents have more power to teach? Who helps their child more, the teacher or the parent? And then you're moving on to more specific ideas. Think about courses. Again, very important part of education. Should courses be a choice for the student, or should they be mandatory? Should schools teach courses that focus on theory, or should they teach courses that focus on skills training? And again, the more you think about specifically, the more focused the subtopics become. And again, from courses, you're talking about theory versus skills. When you're thinking about skills, you're now thinking about STEM courses, science, technology, engineering, maths, or humanities, like the arts and philosophy and things like that. Which is more important? And then you're also thinking, why? Once you're thinking about STEM courses, you can think about a specific course within that, coding. Should students learn to code? Why is coding important? How is coding useful for a student's future? And you're getting more and more and more specific, and your subtopics are getting more and more focused. Okay, so now let's look at housing. We're going to go back to our topic from before. You have a building type. Now you have building types. You can talk about residential versus commercial. You can talk about apartment versus house. If you're thinking about economics, you can talk about buying versus renting. So you're going from a very abstract big topic to a smaller topic to smaller topics and debates, etc. From design, if you're talking about the building or the house its design? Are you more worried about aesthetics or utility? How the building looks or how it's used, etc. Materials, should you use concrete more or wood more, etc. Economics of housing. You can think about specific terms like Airbnb. Is this a good way? Is this a good investment? Should you use your apartment to rent out to strangers for short term, etc.? What are the benefits of building equity? Equity basically means you're building up money stake in something. So if you own a house, your ownership, your net worth of money goes up because you own it. If you're renting, you're basically throwing money away. So you take all of these different subtopics and then you start creating more specific ideas for each of the subtopics themselves. So for example, if you have apartment versus house, for example, start by looking at an apartment. What are the advantages of living in an apartment? It's more affordable, more units are available, etc. Also think about the disadvantages of living in an apartment. You can hear your neighbors, you can meet your neighbors in the elevator. For some people that's an advantage, for some people that's a disadvantage because you want a little bit of privacy, which you would get in a house. So that's one of the arguments you can make in your essay, is the neighbor situation, right? So here are a whole bunch of examples. I'm not going to read them all for you. You can pause the video and look at it if you want. But like I said, I've already created this ebook. I'll tell you about where you can get that a bit later on in our last video for the course. Okay? So that's that. Now, generally speaking, you should have at least 10 subtopics for each topic. The more you have, the better, right? But 10 should be a bit of a minimum. As you're creating the subtopics, you might come across more new words that you didn't think of before. Add them to your keyword list. But the main advantage of the subtopics, and this is why it's very important to do it, are the skills that you gain by doing so. Critical thinking and analysis. You're looking at a topic and you're starting to think about it in a wider range than you had before. For most people, especially the people taking the IELTS and the TOEFL, maybe you're young, you're out of high school, etc., housing is not something you're thinking about. Creating this idea bank helps you start thinking about it and thinking about it a bit more widely. Comparative analysis, you're learning how to look at things from different sides, like the apartment, advantages, disadvantages. Compare it to a house's advantages and disadvantages. You're learning how to brainstorm, which you're going to have to use during the test when you look at your question and have to think of ideas. You're building vocabulary. You're learning how to manage your time because you're going to learn how to practice your planning skills before you start writing. You're organizing things, you're putting things into groupings, you're putting things into debatable contexts, I guess you could call it. And you're learning abstract reasoning. You're taking a random idea that you haven't thought about before and you're starting to think about it in wider and wider views, I guess you could call it that, okay? So a lot of skills to be gained. These skills will be useful later on once you're well past your IELTS and TOEFL exam and in university. And you're going to have to do this a lot more, okay? So keep all that in mind. So that's it for subtopics. Next, we're going to look at questions, and you're going to build all your questions from your subtopics. So you'll notice keywords help you build subtopics, subtopics help you build questions, and so on and so forth, okay? I'll see you next video, and we'll continue from there.